An easy and quick way to improve our drawings. What's not to like about that? Well, if you know my drawings from other videos and from Instagram, you'll know that I do really enjoy drawing very grand architectural drawings. And I stumbled across how effective this technique, this method of improving our drawings can be by mistake. Virtually all of my YouTube drawings are drawn freehand on ink on camera, which can sometimes make the stakes rather high. And there's just a handful of times when the drawings haven't gone quite the way I would have liked them to have gone at a relatively early stage in the drawing process that made me think I need to start again, because I'm not going to be able to show what I want to be able to show if I continue this drawing. Normally, I'm a great supporter of, if you make a mistake, push through, because our mistakes will never look as obvious at the end as they do when we make them. However, there are some mistakes where this isn't going to be as true as I would like. So with this drawing, this is actually take 2. I got to this stage when I abandoned it. And the problem that made me redraw it is not so obvious looking at this. But if we compare it to the second drawing I did, the relative height of this section to this section in this drawing is different to in this drawing. Basically, this gap here is too short for the height of the story above it for the building. And there was no way I could overcome this once I realized I'd drawn it. And in the end, I thought it changed the overall look of the building. It made the building look a bit squatter, a bit, I thought, less grand. And so I bit the bullet and I redrew this. And besides the fact I was able to get this correct, because I was really focused on it, I was also able, I thought, to improve this mansard roof section. This is another drawing that was take 2. And the reason I redrew this one was because I just didn't feel I got the dome looking right. And it all looked a bit squashed and out of proportion. And these columns weren't aligned in a straight way. And so I tried one of my mistake mitigation techniques of actually hatching into a column with shade or shadow, and to take that opportunity to change the tilt of the column slightly. But I didn't feel I could do it adequately without in the end putting so much hatching. I thought the scene had been overwhelmed with hatching. And so I drew it again, and I had a great focus on keeping my columns straight, and I was able to do what I thought was a neater job with the dome. The final drawing I want to show you is this interior perspective scene of one of the reception spaces in the Vienna Opera House. This also was my second version of this drawing. And look, I've got to say, from memory, I think these are really the only 3 drawings that I've started a second time. So please don't think that every drawing gets done several times. But the reason I restarted this one, I think, will be more obvious when I show it to you. And that's that when I originally started, I started with this section at the back of the room, and I thought I would work forwards. But what I found was that it made it extremely difficult to position the chandelier in the center of the space. And because the chandelier, in my mind, centered off to one side, is going to be a pretty obvious mistake that's going to be hard to cover, particularly with the roof decoration that emphasizes the symmetry and the centrality of the placement, I thought I'd better start again. And this time I started with this center section, positioning the chandelier first. So I was able to use the problem I had plotting out the order of the drawing, which gave me a much more successful drawing. So how did this lead me to an easy and quick way to improve our drawing? And it's basically to do a quick drawing first. And when I say quick, by that I mean probably as long as you can bear to do it, knowing that you'll be drawing, in inverted commas, the real one second. But the thing that struck me was in each of these 3 drawings was, having made these erroneous ones, or at least drawings where there was a focus that I didn't like, I couldn't believe how easy it was to draw it correctly in my next take, because all of the work I'd done in this first take was my starting point. I was starting at a far further along point with this drawing than with this one, not just in the parts where I made the errors, but in all parts of the drawing. I was surprised how much more quickly I drew this than drew this. And I was also able to correct some other aspects of the proportions that I didn't like. But basically, if I start a drawing, I have the experience to say it nearly always turns out happily enough. But if this isn't necessarily the case with your drawings yet, then can I suggest doing a 10 to 15 minutes first drawing, first take. Now, I don't mean a rough drawing. I don't mean a thumbnail. I mean a drawing where you really are trying to do a drawing. You're not planning out the drawing. If you like, a practice drawing, a dry run. So I thought I would do this with a new drawing to show you the difference it makes for me with my drawing and my drawing technique. Now, I was always intending the second drawing to be the, if you like, real drawing. And I think it's helpful to do that. So here I am now drawing the first drawing of this country church. So this drawing took me 10 minutes to draw. So it was a fairly brisk sketch and I was quite happy with it as a quick sketch. But because it was meant to be a learning process for a drawing that would take perhaps 5 minutes longer, I was still thinking my second drawing would only be about 15 minutes. The question at the end was, what did or didn't I like about it? What have I learnt from it? What focus could I take from this when I draw this again now with a little more time? And the main thing that I realised was that I didn't pay enough attention to where the church hit ground level, and I compressed too much the distance between the base of the church and this gutter here. Well, I didn't actually draw the gutter, but the base of the fence line here. And so that was something I was going to have to pay more attention to. And I feel that in some ways, this spire is just a little bit too large and thick here for the proportions of the church. It has a somewhat more slender, less bulky feel, I think, here than here. So let me draw this again, and this second drawing now took 15 minutes. So it's still a fast sketch. But when I began, from the moment I began, I was aware of the parts of this drawing that I wasn't happy with and the parts that I stumbled over a bit when I was drawing, particularly where these buttresses increase in size and so forth. And unfortunately, I had my camera turned off for the first 10 minutes of this second drawing, but you'll get to see me finish the lower part of it, and then we can compare the two drawings and just see what I learned and was it worth it? Well, let's draw. So here's my second drawing, my 15-minute version. And I think I have managed to get a more slender feel with the spire that's more in line with how it actually is. And I have managed to get, I think, a better representation of the foreground and the foreshortening and distance and the landscaping elements that are there as well. So is it worth the trouble? Well, let's compare the two. So my question is, if I was saying to you, you can take one of them, Would you want the 10-minute one or the 15-minute one? To my mind, I feel that the 15-minute one shows a lot of improvement over what is still a reasonable drawing, especially given the time in which I drew it. But I think this one has just a bit more accuracy in its perspective angles, in its line work, and certainly in this lower section. So the difference between this one and this one is that this one, I took 10 minutes to draw before I drew this one. And when I drew this one, I was aware of certain issues that I potentially could have the second time I drew it. I was aware of the areas that I didn't think I'd successfully solved very well with my line work or with my placement of various elements of the drawing. And that all gave me a stronger, more confident sense of where I was going to place lines and how I was going to render various parts of the drawing. Now, I'm not saying we need to draw every drawing twice, but if you're someone who would say you're probably more at the starting end of drawing rather than the more experienced end of drawing, then this could be a tremendous, if you like, warm-up process, warm-up exercise. But we have to commit enough time to it, that we take enough effort with it, that the mistakes we make are not so obvious. And I would say, even if we were going to do a drawing that was maybe a half-hour, 40-minute drawing, then do a 15, 20-minute drawing first. We can think of it in terms of this 15-minute drawing actually took me 25 minutes to draw because this 10 minutes was part of that process. It was part of me getting to the place where I was able to put these lines on the paper. In some ways, this is like a pencil under drawing that's been erased. I think it's a tremendously helpful way to learn and to improve our drawing. Why not give it a go? G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. I hope you found this interesting. I found it very interesting and very compelling. And certainly if I was earlier in my drawing development, I would be doing this with some regularity. And of course, if you want to have a go drawing this yourself, then I'll put this reference photo on my channel community page. So why not use this to have a go with this drawing technique? But hey, whatever you draw and however you're drawing it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.